Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. And today with me, I have none other than the wonderful Jonathan Dunsmoor, who is the founder and principal of Dunsmoor Law. So before we get into it, hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Aviva. How are you?
I'm excellent, and I'm really excited about our topic today. Now, I very rarely concentrate a lot of energy on one person in terms of being the topic for our podcasts. But I have to tell you that this is one of a chain of podcasts that we're doing on Elon Musk. And there's a reason why we are mentioning Elon Musk again. And it has to do with the fact that there is a growing concern that he is using his weight as an influencer, as a celebrity, and he's using his social media platform, especially Twitter, to move the price of Bitcoin. We've already done previous podcasts on this, so please just look on cryptoandblockchaintalk.com and you'll see we have done a podcast on Tesla and how they invested $1.5 billion US or 8% of their corporate treasury into Bitcoin, which is totally expected. We talked about it also many podcasts ago, been alluding to this being a move that he wanted to make. Now, there have been a lot of comments out there, including the economist Nouriel Roubini, Dr. Doom, and he states that tweets that are being made by Elon Musk about Bitcoin ahead of Tesla's investments are market manipulation, and the SEC should investigate. And it's not even just Mr. Roubini who is saying this. This is coming from multiple quarters, supporting the statement of Mr. Roubini and saying that Elon Musk is really sailing too close to the wind and he's going to end up falling foul of the law, which he has done before. He's ended up paying the SEC in penalties, something like $40 million.
Yes and no. First and foremost, all of this information is for educational purposes only. This is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. This is not investment advice from myself or Aviva. These are personal views. These do not reflect the views of our clients or anyone else other than us. So that being said, I think that finding Elon Musk, who's a multi-billionaire, $40 million is the equivalent of a parking ticket. And so his statement at that point in time in which he ran afoul of the SEC was that he had a buyer take Tesla private, right? And so when you make a statement like that, that does actually affect the markets and can drive market fluctuations, that in the most purest terms is some form of market manipulation, especially when it ultimately wasn't true, right? And so that combined with is completely different than having, anything to do with taking Tesla private or what Tesla does with its massive treasury bank, right? It's the same if Tesla said they're going to invest in gold and Elon Musk said the same thing about the gold price or the price of gold or stocking gold or anything like that. It's functionally the same equivalent. And so crying and complaining about, the price of Bitcoin and all of these other things that Elon may not be tweeting out is basically arguing with the troll.
Okay, so let's set aside for this entire podcast his brilliance in terms of inventions or going on spaceships to other planets. Let's set that aside because it is an interesting conversation because, you have to remember Bitcoin went up and they also moved down. And it so happens that...
Hold on, Aviva. Bitcoin only goes up and stonks only go up. That's the rules. That's the rules. We know this. GameStop has taught us this.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Stupid me. But, it's really hard to argue that Elon Musk doesn't have a huge impact like any other whale, but maybe not and he's obviously the most outspoken whale that there is out there, because Bitcoin prices also plummeted after Elon Musk tweeted that Bitcoin seems too high. And as you see now, I mean, Bitcoin right now is at 47. Before he made this statement that Bitcoin seems too high, we were talking it was almost at 60. The purpose of this podcast, the reason why this podcast was originally really created, was to teach people about the worlds of crypto and blockchain, and how, just like you do with our beautiful disclaimer on every single one of these podcasts, is to tell people not to listen to just any Joe Schmo. They shouldn't listen to anyone. They have to do their own research, their own due diligence, seek out a registered professional financial advisor, yada, 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 if they want to invest, but you know what people are like. People are still being sucked in by scams left, right, and center, still doing things which, if they sat back and took a moment and a deep breath, that they wouldn't normally do. But when you have someone like Elon Musk 1 minute going, oh, you should be buying this, Bitcoin's the future, look, I'm investing 1.5 billion US dollars into Bitcoin, and then the next day he goes, well, I think the price seems too high. I mean, people who really don't know this space, but they're desperate to get into it because they see the amounts of money that are being made by people who are obviously doing quite well if they invested at the right time. But, if you bought at 58, 59, and in some places it touched 60, I think, briefly, I think it's, dare I say, irresponsible. I think Musk should lay off. I think he should shut off from Twitter. This is my take on it. I think he should enjoy his wealth and his inventions and whatever he's doing privately. But I seriously think it's time for him to shut the old wazoo, because I honestly feel that people who don't know what they're doing are going to emulate a man who's got billions of billions. I think he's the richest man in the world at this moment.
Bezos overcame him a couple of days ago, but I understand what you're saying. Market cap, he's probably got $180 billion. He's got a lot of time on his hands to argue with trolls and respond to people on Twitter, primarily because, I think that's his only kind of form of communication with the world. I mean, he grew up in that kind of message boards and things of that nature. In terms of whether Bitcoin is successful or not, is a question that not Elon Musk can answer. If you look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin, it's probably going to be around for a while. I do find it troubling that he believes that Dogecoin has gotten some merit, because I think while Dogecoin is really funny meme, great cryptocurrency meme stock, I think people that, are taking his cadence and investing, like you said, untold amounts of money into Doge is just absolutely troubling. And I think that's where people are going to find a lot of problems. Myself included have just received messages from people hearing about Dogecoin because they can't afford Bitcoin, and this whole, misunderstanding that unlike, traditional stocks, which is not really the case anymore, you can still, buy divided interest in a stock now. But, people look at Bitcoin and say, oh my God, I can't afford, $50,000 for a Bitcoin. Well, I mean, you can buy as little as, $1 worth of Bitcoin. I don't encourage you to buy $1 worth, but I encourage you to buy some. Right. And so, most people don't understand that because they think the traditional markets as you must buy a whole. And so when they look at that compared to Dogecoin, they say, oh, my gosh, Dogecoin is so much more affordable. I can buy a bunch of Doge and hopefully it'll shoot up to $50,000 one day. And I think that fundamental market principle is absolutely there's some good memes to be had, and there's some good possible low-level utility for it when it comes to the equivalency of having it as a multi-billion-dollar asset or something that people are actively throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars behind their life savings. That's where I think we start getting into questions.
I'm glad you brought up Doge before I did, because I had to sit back and really think about this for a little bit, because it can't be the fact that this guy has time on his hands, and it can't be that he's lonely and has no friends except on the internet. And the point is that, when you go and you are shilling for Doge, which that's what I think he's doing, even CZ from Binance is completely gobsmacked that Elon Musk is really going hard in for Dogecoin, but it's not going to be funny if there's really no, of course you could have utility behind it, right? You could say anything could have possibilities. It worries me though when the world's richest person is sitting there and pushing something which, quite frankly, compared to, there's a lot of projects out there that he could have said, this is an amazing coin. The blockchain is amazing. It has great utility, great use, real world use. But instead, I just thought he's taking the piss. He's taking the piss. And there's no way he's going to, oh, I like dogs. I mean, what's the excuse for that? It doesn't make any sense. But what also worried me is that he actually, apparently, he said that he would ask major Dogecoin investors to sell most of their coins, and he would literally, this is a quote, literally pay actual dollars to void their accounts. And he said, too much concentration is the real issue, in my opinion. And then Musk went on to say that people were concerned about the drop in the market price of Doge following actions on the part of the whales. He said that prices would be temporarily lower, but it would give the potential for a long-term raise for a coin that is a joke coin. It's like anything that we've ever talked about before. There's usually a reason why something doesn't make sense, a reason you and I just don't understand. So I really want to kind of get why somebody, out of all the thousands of coins out there, and listen, I know most of the coins out there are beep coins, yeah, but there's still a lot of projects out there which totally deserve time and attention.
Absolutely. There's some really great things going on.
Why would he do that?
I think, well, it's a combination of a number of things, right? I think, one, he is a massive internet troll, right? When you become so untouchable from a level of wealth, but also you are bulletproof. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. He tweeted out something that was, for all intents and purposes, market manipulation, and only paid a $40 million fine. Now, most people, $40 million would be enough for us to, change names, change passports. And whereas to him, like I said, it's a parking violation. Whether that's something that he thinks about regularly or dealing with the SEC on a regular basis, as long as it doesn't necessarily affect the stock price of Tesla or put the public markets at a disadvantage, then he has nothing to worry about. And so when it comes, his concerns about Doge, it's mostly he believes in the underlying technology as I understand it, but he's more concerned with the massive amounts of wallets that have, whale concentration of wealth. Ironically, the billionaire knows this best, or one of, the top 2 billionaires in the world knows this best, that doesn't allow for decentralization. And so when you're looking at these currencies and you're looking for, actual quote unquote DeFi and that real world decentralization, you've got to look and see how the network operates. And that's where you're getting to about, these other projects that, he should bring attention to. And I think it's a matter of, one, him not wanting to take one opportunity over the next, right? Because Bitcoin and Dogecoin are in two separate universes. One's a meme coin or meme alt S coin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the other one is, the cryptocurrency, right? And so anything in between that is where the gray matter lies, right? And I think there's absolutely a number of really massive, impressive projects. But Elon, of all people, tweet out, what they're supporting or what they're doing, then there's going to be some type of market reaction. And I think for the most part, as much as he's a troll, he's also kind of a fair troll. Like, for example, Gene Simmons recently announced he made a $300,000 investment in Cardano. The network behind it and a lot of the things that are done there are going to make decentralization a lot easier and a lot more manageable than some of the other projects. Why you see Ethereum and a number of other protocols a make model as opposed to a proof of work. Now, that being said, in my mind, without making those disclosures, that would be a form of, I would not say market manipulation, but it would be an untruth, right?
Well, absolutely. But what I also find interesting, though, Bloomberg Asia, they recorded CZ from Binance in an interview. And I guess Elon was basically tweeting like mad on it. He was replying to this interview with CZ where he was expressing his shock at Elon going strong on Doge, and then some other comments that were being made by CZ about Tesla buying Bitcoin. Musk actually wrote from his own account the following things. Tesla's actions are not directly reflective of my opinion. Having some Bitcoin, which is simply a less dumb form of liquidity than cash, is adventure enough for an S&P company. And this shows that he's clearly upset by what was being said by CZ on this Bloomberg channel, which was on Twitter. He said, to be clear, I am not an investor. I am an engineer. I don't even own any publicly traded stock besides Tesla. However, when fiat currency has negative real interest, Bitcoin is almost as BS as fiat money. The key word is almost. So I just want to talk about this statement, which shows that, like I guess you were alluding to before, he spends a lot of time, for whatever reason, on Twitter. But he says a couple things here. It's a very strange thing to say, I'm not an investor. That's the first comment I want to make, because not only is he sitting here talking about Doge and Bitcoin and even Mars coin. You know, Mars coin is a coin that nobody would look at twice, yet because he talked about it, it went up 1,800%. And these are investments. Okay. So to say I'm not an investor, I'm an engineer. I've never owned any publicly traded stock besides Tesla. I don't know what that has to do with anything, quite frankly, because first of all, it's not true, that statement. He is an investor. It's a very strange thing because he negates it himself by saying, I only own Tesla stock, which means that regardless, he's investing in his own company. But, you know, he's also saying, you know, it's kind of strange. Why would you turn around and then flagellate yourself by saying Bitcoin is almost as BS as fiat money? And I understand what he's saying about fiat currency having negative real interest. And why would you keep your money, especially if you have billions of it, in a bank doing nothing in terms of working for you when you could put it in something like Bitcoin? I think the problem that a lot of people have, and this includes perhaps myself, is that he's not doing these investments and just getting on with life. He's talking them up or down, which is dragging the markets up or down, and newbies into this marketplace up and down, because there's a lot of new people. It's one of the reasons BCH and BSV were delisted from OKCoin, and they said one of the reasons why they delisted it was because, you know, newbies were getting confused which one was Bitcoin. And so if you have people who are so new to the space that they don't even know the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Gold and all these other things that are called Bitcoin something, even OKCoin is saying we want people in this space. We want to have a higher percentage of adoption and use and understanding. But as long as we have this kind of pumping and just smack talk, whether you're bringing it up or down, because to say in 1 minute that, you know, Bitcoin's going to like change the world and I'm going to invest 1.5 billion and it's the best thing since sliced bread. And on that one, I'm obviously paraphrasing, and then go, well, you know, it's just a little less BS than fiat currency. I just think, in my opinion, he needs to back off. But from a legal point of view, so if the SEC was watching this, yes, I understand there's a difference between what he did here in this case and what he did when he was tweeting that he could make Tesla private at like 400 and something per share, whatever he was doing at the time. I understand the difference, but I don't even care in a way about the SEC giving him the fines and him paying the fines, because you and I both know, because we have done a lot of shows on these fines that are being levied at all of these people who are doing God only knows what, and they, you know, there doesn't seem to be a proportional thing here. But I think the SEC might, from a moral stance, go, wait a minute, hold on. This is a really new space and people don't know what they're doing, and they're going to take these as signals. I mean, is a moral stance a legal stance?
Yes and no.
I needed the yes and no. I got one in this podcast.
Exactly, right? It always depends. That's the famous lawyer answer, is the SEC does not guard against morality. There is no governmental agency that does that. These cryptocurrencies are not regulated by the SEC, the ones that he's tweeting about. The ones that he's mentioning, the things that he's discussing are not under their purview. Now, there's a question of whether, market manipulation and therefore fraud and all those other kind of provisions of Section 15, fall within that governance, right, of the SEC. And I don't believe it does, because then it would just open an entire can of worms of, how do you govern an ungovernable market? And we don't have a really comprehensive method and madness of creating a new lexicon to make it understandable for the average everyday user, which is the part that really baffles me about this entire space. And so every time we find a parallel between the regulated world and the cryptocurrency world always wants to use that same regulated term. I don't know whether it's to troll the regulated world or just make my life more interesting.
As you know, Tesla shares, also MicroStrategy shares, after these companies invest in Bitcoin, they seemingly go up, their stock prices in tandem, in parallel. Well, now something's happened, because by Musk and Tesla embracing Bitcoin, investors have now tied Bitcoin and Tesla together pretty much like Siamese twins at the hip, right? And now it seems that Tesla's shares have now tumbled more than 20% since they hit the high of more than 880 in early January. And the reason why they've probably suffered such a steep fall is because, and it's still falling, is because of their investment in Bitcoin. So it's not even just who are affected, who are investing in Bitcoin, it's also the people who have invested in Tesla. The thing is that volatility happens regardless. We all know this in the stock markets. Volatility in the crypto markets is obscene. I mean, we're all used to it. I mean, we all know, anyone who's been in the crypto market more than 2 minutes, you know that it's extremely volatile. So if it's messing around now with Tesla's shares and it's this early in, can you imagine what the hell is going to happen if the Bitcoin prices do go down to something like 30, or I won't even say less because I can't even imagine, but can you imagine being a Tesla investor and then seeing something like this where a decision's been made to tie large amounts of money to a very volatile currency?
I'm a holder, or a holder in the truest sense. I don't day trade. I don't, do any of that kind of fun stuff. I think $1.5 billion for who knows what terrible event may happen, and I never think it'll go that low. Do you think that there's a possibility that it could go down? And when it goes down, I will buy more of it. And I think anybody who's really prudent and has the cash on hand should probably buy more, because the U.S. has printed a bunch of money. Like I said, a bunch of other countries have printed a bunch of money, and that generally means that inflation is going to rise. And so if you have the opportunity to hedge against inflation, options have only been traditionally gold. Between that, the oil crisis and things of this kind of crazy environmental nature, like, you're really put in a position where Bitcoin may be the best opportunity for you.
We're going to have to wait and see the next installment of what happens both in the crypto markets and with Musk's tweets and with what Tesla does. I want to thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk this week. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. I once again encourage everyone to do their own due diligence with anything we've said. Know that these are all of our personal opinions and not legal advice, financial advice, or investment advice.
I would like to thank everyone for tuning into this week's Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Please remember to tell your friends and family to listen to us on one of many podcasting platforms where they can entertain themselves for hours and hours with over 135 different episodes, or whatever the number is at this moment. The full list of podcasting platforms is on cryptoandblockchaintalk.com, and it starts with iTunes, iTunes and goes all the way to Amazon Music and everything in between. On top of that, you can also listen to us on Crypto 24 Radio, where you can hear these podcasts, news, and music 24/7 around the world. That's Crypto 24 Radio. Now, you can always contact us through the normal methods of social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, but we love to hear from you directly. And that is done by emailing us at education@savvydigital.com. That's education@savvy, S-A-V-I-I, digital.com. Again, thank you for tuning in. We know you have a huge amount of choice when it comes to tuning into a podcast, and the fact that you tune into us means everything. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please be safe, take care, and goodbye.